Hi, I'm Ben from Ben Construct, and I'm going to give you a quick talk about laminating your worktop and your legs, particularly your legs this time, and show you or explain to you the advantages of using a laminator in making a workbench. Okay, without any more to do, I'm going to grab you and we'll have a walk around. Okay, just talking about the top first of all. I take it you can see the tape measure. And so you've got basically 32 millimeters or 1¼ inch, sorry about the shadow there, wide boards used for this. They're 90 deep, okay, and that's about the thickness of a scaffold board. So potentially you could have made this. I nearly actually bought scaffold boards to make this in the first place. Um, so as you see, you've got a nice effect there with like a decking of a boat, and that's why you put the pigment in, not because it makes it any stronger. But what it does to the table is stabilizes the timber. These are only construction grade yellow pine or spruce. From just from a standard box store really is where I got this from. I think some of it came from a yard. It was seasoned for 2 or 3 weeks in the workshop just to kind of stabilize the actual water content on it. I forgot the name of that one, but anyway. And then it was just checked with I've got a little gauge you can stick into the wood and get a reading off to see how it was. It was very stable there before I glued it up. And so that's that. And see what now? Uh, this is another point of interest. When I looked at the video of Will Myers, yeah, he said when it came to joining the top to the leg, you should let the top overhang by I think up to an eighth. Now I took his advice, but it hasn't shrunk at all. So I've actually got a step in that now. And with the laminates being that fine, they're not like 2 inches wide or anything like that, or even an inch and a half, as you know. They're fairly stable. I haven't even flattened the top, and there might be a millimeter or two between the two back bench and the front bench. See the joint probably there now between the two. So that's worked well, really well, and that's why it's good for the top. It's better than using a solid bit of wood, even if it's oak or seasoned oak. The laminates do a terrific job of that. Okay, so we'll move on down the legs now, and this is where it really comes into its own. This is where it's used a lot on boat building and stuff for the splines and the ribs of the boat. And these are 6 millimeter wide, solid yellow pine again. And what the laminate does, first of all, it stabilizes. See, that leg is, with that many laminates in it, it's not going anywhere. Okay. And it can look really nice, probably if you actually sculptured it more, because it exposes the laminate slightly different and they seem to swerve as they go through the timber. I've only done a minimal carve on that, so it's not very much. But what it does now, and this is why the epoxy is used in spaceships, because and new yachts, the Formula One or Formula 40 yachts, which are used now, they use the epoxy a lot, but they don't often use the wood anymore. They have all the Kevlar Mylar mixes, and the same with the spaceships. So that's why they use it, and it strengthens it. Now, although that's only a softwood, once you do that with a laminate, you've got a piece of wood there which is as strong as oak and stable, more stable even than oak. So that's how that one works. And then moving on to the stretchers, now you have the glue joint going vertically ways or long ways on the timber, as opposed to that with the leg, if you can understand me. So that shows you a solid face from that side and a laminate face from the front. On the stretchers, we've got probably only a 22 millimeter. Let me just get the tape measure down so everyone can see this. We've only got a 22 millimeter wide timber, which is just what 3/4 inch really. 3 of them locked together. Same trick, but this time it was joined as a flat plank, and the radius part of it comes out from actually using a plank which is about 4 inches wider than was required, and then I cut the shape with a jigsaw. So that shape then was cut through a solid piece which was bigger. I wanted the shape of those to have a bow in them to marry in with the legs, and so that's how that works. And again, what you'll find will happen there, because it's only construction grade timber, because it's been laminated 3 times, that'll stabilize it. That won't, warp or twist on you anymore. What the epoxy, if you imagine this now, if some of the casting epoxies they use in resin tables, that's probably just about as hard as a medium hardwood. Now, if you use the laminating epoxy, that's as hard as ebony, to give you an idea. So you're adding like veins of strength into the wood, so everything increases in strength, and it really allows you to chip out bits, like if you see on these short stretches here where I've cut them out. Now, I haven't actually laminated those, they've just been carved, so it is slightly different that. But if you leave the meat of them on the joint stays strong, and it's got the diagonal strength from corner to corner, which means it's still a stronger piece of wood, even though I've carved quite a lot out of there. I don't know if you can see that. Same with the bottom one, I've carved a lot of that out of there, and it's still strong. So without the laminate, but if you really wanted to fine your timbers down even more, you could laminate that, you see, either way like that, to be really strong, or long ways, like the stretcher I've done here, and that'll make it strong. So I hope I've made myself clear with that. And of course, like for me, the overall effect of that, I love it, Whoops, tripping over here anyway. But anyway, it's just a quick one to explain the the pros of using that laminate and the effect it has, visually, but the actual strengthening it adds into the timbers. And I'd be interested to hear if anyone's got any comments which are, shall we say, not within my line of thinking. So anyway, that's it for now. Just a quick one about the lamination of a workbench and what advantages you can have. Sorry about that, guys. I didn't throw it into the imperial measurements for the guys from America and around the world who use that. When I say 90 mil deep, you can see yourself there. It's 3.5 inches. There is what it is in depth for the worktop. The oak face is the same as the yellow pine or spruce behind it. So it's 90 mil. If that wasn't clear, I'm sorry about that. There you go now. Yeah, just coming back to the design part of this, obviously, if you're looking down at the table, you're going to see the veins of the pigmented epoxy, black pigmented epoxy running this way. But also, if you then look down at your stretcher, you'll also see the veins of the pigmented stretcher. So the idea was to make them, to the eye, everything matches as you look at it from that angle. If you look down from the top, then you're going to see that. Now it does possibly clash when you go to the leg, because they're running slightly differently, but it kind of worked out. I felt it worked out anyway, that they do kind of run into the veins on the top. So that was the design part of it. Now, as a purist, you might say that those veins should have carried on and then run up the leg that way. And you could say that is possibly a mistake from a visual point of view, but structurally, the super thin veins are almost certainly stronger that way, and they hold the thinner laminates in that shape. So you've got the radius leg, which is one of the big things I was going after. So a fairly tight radius for that, and then a kind of slower radius for the stretcher. Okay, that's the design element of it that I was thinking of. Now this is a little caveat about the top here. I was just explaining to you it's 90 millimeters deep, and as was said, it's 3.5 inches deep on the imperial scale. Now I'd be quite confident if I use those narrower laminates, which are, as we've measured before, were the 1.25 inch ones, to actually bring enough depth for that. Probably 2.5 inches would be quite a substantial worktop if it's laminated with finer, finer timbers, such as those, or you could go even finer and put more glue joints in. But if you had and that's, I think I was right, 2.5 is 2.5. Let me just get that round. 2.5 is 65 millimeters deep. Would be quite a substantial bench, and there's an advantage to that because, of course, the Moravian is a lot of it's about mobility, And if you were to make one of these to go in your yacht or in your back of your car, it just makes the whole thing really lovely and light to throw up in 5 minutes. That's the hardest bit, is this big worktop area, which, as some people say, the weight is an advantage. Yes, it is, of course, but you have to think about the mobility and getting it in and out. I got a recent question there. Would it be suitable for a site works? Well, yes, absolutely it would. It'd be perfect for a site. And if you thin the top down, for site work, you don't actually need the full thickness, as a joinery shop would. You want the mobility as much as anything. And if you watch one of my videos, I'm going to show one there shortly about the vices. This vise I can drop out of there in under 10 seconds. So that would be the main weight. That's a 9-inch vise. But again, you don't need the 9-inch vise for a construction site. To even have a vise on some sites is a luxury. That 7-inch vise is very, very light. If you reduce your thickness of your table to 65 and kept to a 7-inch vise, you could make a really handy table here too, for mobile, for going in your yacht, your back of your car, if you like doing hobbies while you're on holiday. Or you go down to people's houses and work on them. This would be a terrific bench for that. That would be one of the drawbacks, though, of having the curved legs. They won't flat pack quite as well as the straight legs. So you have that. That would, if you wanted to make a lovely lightweight bench with straight legs, reduce the top thickness using the laminate. Keep with the softwoods. The softwood, that's a very, very stable bench, and at 65 millimeters thick, you could of course increase the or decrease the thickness of the timber, and you're going to get more strength. Okay, so that, if you're looking for design which is much more mobile and going on a construction site or working on people's houses, that's what you could do. Certainly, it'll keep it lovely and light if you keep with the softwood. The veins of epoxy will give it the strength. Drop out the 9-inch vise. And was it Ross who asked me this question? Stick with this 7-inch vise. Now, as I said, that can be dropped off there in less than 10 seconds. So if you're not using the end vise, guys, just keep one vise with you. And if you look underneath, all it is 4 nuts to take off. You can have this vise off the end over to the face pipe position in less than a minute. You probably take another 2 minutes just to tighten up the nuts, but that's that's what the one advantage. Keep everything light, because one of the biggest problems when you're working on sites or people's houses is lobbing all the gear around each day and setting up. This would be an ideal bench for that kind of work. A few design changes, straight legs or straight stretches, so it'll flat pack, and stick with a 9-inch vise, and leave your stubs out, because they're through bolts. If you look here, they're through bolts which hold the bench. So they just stay there. Pop a couple of rubber caps when you're not using it, and then the threads are all kept free. 2 positions for it to work in, and you've got a very, very mobile bench there on your hands there. Maybe not quite as heavy, but super strong anyway with the laminates. Okay, hope that was of interest. Just going to do a quick caveat here about why plywood wouldn't be quite so good for building your workbench. It's only a thin strip of plywood, this. You can probably see that. The glues that they use in making the plywood are pretty cheap. They're not the kind of water resistance you'll get with the epoxies. So look, it's not a bad way of making a workbench out of plywood, but it's not on the same level as this solid wood, and running it through with epoxy. You could certainly go as fine as these laminates and put epoxy in, and it'd be like the legs, like super strength, you know. And but putting plywood into strips and then gluing them together with the epoxy, it's be okay, you know. It's nothing. There's nothing wrong with it, but it wouldn't be. You see, the problem you've got with this, some of the glues in it are not really waterproof, and they're certainly not up to the same quality as epoxy. So it's going to be, if you've got it outside, get a few soaking from an odd shower or something like that, they're going to show the wear. You know, solid wood itself, even if it's soft wood, you know, it'll take a few soakings, and if it's laminated up like this, you know, it won't be bothered by it. You know, you leave it out for a week there, and you're not going to really notice any difference. Obviously, it wouldn't be a good practice to leave your workbench out for a week in rain, but you know, to survive it, if you did that to a plywood workbench, that'd be a different kettle of fish. You'd be talking about the seams coming apart and all sorts like that. Okay, that's all I kind of have to throw in at the moment against the plywood. As I said, it's a good way of making a bench, but it wouldn't be up to the same kind of grade as using solid woods and running it through with epoxy. Okay, just another little thing I forgot to, or I couldn't bring to my mind to tell you, it was this is what I was talking about. It's made by this one's made by Brennan's store. I don't know whether I don't get any sponsorship from these guys, but I just bought one when I was testing the timbers to see if they were stabilizing when I was drying them out. As I said to you previously, you know, 2 or 3 weeks you really should leave them before you start gluing up your table, just to let them acclimatize in the workshop before you start. What it is, it's described as a damp meter, and you see the prongs on the top. You just zap them in the wood there, and you look at the dial, and you see it's below 10 as a moisture reading on that. And you can jab that around the table anywhere other places, and check different parts of the timber when they're on the rack drying. But that's what that is now. And that's it. Damp detector. They're not expensive. I think it was 25 quid to get that one from a box store. You know, Amazon does it, eBay does it, you know, and all those crowd. So they're certainly useful, you know, if you're going for you know, construction grade timbers or just your box store timbers. Yeah, once it gets under 10, it stays stable without shifting around, and several different parts of the plank are the same. Then you're pretty much ready to go then, guys. Okay, that's the end of that video. I hope the sound quality has gone up now, because I have got a microphone to work with the mobile phone. I have got a new camera to use as well, so you know, the optics should be better in future as well, guys. If you're following or watching me, appreciate you listening to this anyway, and hope it was helpful. Goodbye then, and give us a thumbs up, of course, if you wouldn't mind. And if you're new to here, please give us a subscribe or follow. That'll be appreciated. Thank you.